Hello and welcome to a Theme Park Worldwide news update. Now you may have seen last week here on our YouTube channel that I filmed two different videos about theme parks reopening around the world. The first one of those was about the reopening of the first Disney park, and that was Shanghai Disneyland in China. A few days ago I posted a video talking about European theme parks, and some select parks throughout Germany, the Netherlands and a few other countries have announced plans to reopen, and some of those have actually gone on to reopen this week. Because I've filmed those videos, I've had a lot of people messaging in and commenting on those videos, asking me to share my thoughts on when I think the UK theme parks are going to reopen. And that's why I'm sat here now to talk about this subject. Now, of course, I've waited quite a while before filming this. I could have gone out there a couple of months back at the start of all this and filmed something about the subject and when our UK theme parks could reopen. However, I wanted to sort of hold off until we had some more confirmation and some more information to talk about. And as much as there is going to be some speculation in this video, also I'm going off some facts that we've got at the moment as well to sort of share with this. So it's going to be a mix of facts that we've definitely got and also some speculation in there as well. So I'm just going to try and make it as easy as possible for you to understand, and let's sort of see what happens in terms of the subject moving forward. But these are my thoughts and exactly what we could be seeing in terms of the reopening of theme parks here in the United Kingdom. So last week the government here in the UK actually eased some of the lockdown restrictions. There is still a lockdown in place, however they've eased some of that. So it means, for example, me and Charlotte have been able to meet up this week for the first time in 8 weeks. We've been able to see each other, however stay 2 meters apart, of course following social distancing rules, which of course is something that everybody should still be following. Now, along with that, the government last week actually set out a plan of different phases and when they want to start reopening parts of the UK again, and of course start to get the economy moving again, and but also make sure that the infection rate doesn't start moving up again, and that's something that they're very keen on making sure that everyone is doing, following the rules and of course keeping that infection rate as low as possible. So something that's really interesting about the whole government plan, what was released, was the fact they've got these different stages, this different process that they're going to go through. And stage 3 of that process, which could commence as early as July the 4th, could be the reopening of some of the hospitality industry here in the UK. Now, theme parks do fall under hospitality, along with pubs, restaurants and various other attractions such as museums. It all comes under hospitality. So that leads you to think that possibly, depending on how infections go over the next few weeks, we could potentially start to see the restrictions lifted, allowing some theme parks to reopen from that date. Now, this doesn't actually mean that theme parks would be in the position to open from this date, even if they had the go-ahead. Again, this is all going down with speculation, so they're the facts. The Prime Minister here in the UK has stated that is their plan by July the 4th to move on to this next stage of the process, stage 3, and look at reopening hospitality. Now, I look at this thinking, right, when coronavirus started, and of course it moved into the UK, it was at the time when our British theme parks were preparing to reopen for the start of the season. Some theme parks had already opened, some theme parks hadn't opened yet, such as Thorpe Park and Alton Towers that had only done buyout days. So it was one of those that the parks were prepared, ready for the start of the season. However, it's now been over 2 months since that amount of time, and you've got to think of the whole process of what goes on at these theme parks. And I know this from spending nearly 8 years working at Alton Towers. A hell of a lot goes into the preparation of opening a park. And say that the theme park's got the approval to reopen from July the 4th, you've got to think there's so much that has got to happen following that if they haven't already prepared for that to happen. So things such as ride testing. Now, it's certain that rides have still been tested by maintenance teams at theme parks. I know for a fact Alton Towers, some rides have been running. From cycling past, I've heard the rides. I know that they've been running, and I've seen through the trees some of the rides in X sector. So we know that rides are running at the parks. They're not just standing there. These are machines, they're mechanical. It's like your car. You need to make sure that you're running it, else it's not going to work. You know, you need to keep running things, and it's the same with rides. rides. So rides have been running round, which of course is a great sign in terms of they're not just being sat there. But of course, I'm sure a lot of parks out there have been doing that, not just Alton Towers. Now, along with that, you've got to think as well, it was the start of the season. These theme parks have recruited for the start of the season. Now, I know for a fact at Alton Towers, it's mostly seasonal staff. Yes, you've got a lot of permanent staff there, and I was permanent during my time there, or at least the second part of my time at Alton Towers. However, you are seasonal at first, and in terms of the operation, it is mostly seasonal, as much as there's the hotels and water park that operate throughout the year. The vast majority of the workforce is seasonal staff. So you've got to think in terms of getting the staff. Now, Alton Towers may have already recruited for the start of the season. It's been 2 months since then. There's been a lot of other job opportunities, especially working in supermarkets, key workers, all that kind of stuff. So it makes you think, could Alton Towers and theme parks in general have to look at more staff, or at least recruiting more staff before they're at the position where they could open? Even if they get the go-ahead on July the 4th, they may have to think, right, now we've got to do some more recruitment because we haven't got the staff. And a lot of staff, including management at the parks, have been furloughed, which is a UK scheme, which basically means the government are paying 80% of wages. And I'm sure there's plenty of people watching this video who have been furloughed and are on that at the moment. So there's so much to think about. And in terms of when they can reopen, they've then got to think about the social distancing measures. The government and the Prime Minister in the UK have said that if this is the case, that infections are down and we can start to reopen the hospitality industry from July the 4th, you know, that all depends on social distancing. Things can't reopen unless you're staying 2 meters apart. They've got to put markers down. We could potentially, like we have seen at theme parks around the world that have announced the reopening, procedures in place where you've got to wear face coverings, face masks, have temperature checks, such as over at Shanghai Disneyland. I know Energylandia in Poland are looking at that, and various other parks I'm sure will too. So you've got to think all that takes time and money to set up. So even if they do get the go-ahead, it could be quite a last-minute thing. They get the go-ahead. They've got to then think about the preparations, if preparations haven't already been taking place. And I'm sure there's a lot of theme parks out there, especially the Merlin theme parks, which is a big company. It's huge. They own numerous different theme parks and attractions over the world, over 100 attractions. I'm sure they've been thinking behind the scenes how they are going to reopen. I'm not doubting that. I'm sure they exactly know what they're going to do. However, have they been able to get everything what they need yet? Who knows? You know, they might not be able to get the resources they need to reopen. So realistically, even if they do get the go-ahead from the start of July, they may not be ready. So yeah, that's my first sort of talking about it all. Of course, July the 4th is just a provisional date from the government. It all depends on the infection rate. If it continues to rise, then that would be it. You know, it would keep getting pushed back, as it should do. I'm sure all of you will agree that we all want our theme parks back, but safety is paramount. That is the priority, especially with this pandemic and the situation going on at the moment. So following on from that, you know, you think about July the 4th, some pubs and restaurants might be granted to reopen, but theme parks still might not be until later in that stage. You know, you've got to think that this is just a provisional thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that all theme parks would get the go-ahead. They may look at some pubs and restaurants first, then go into theme parks and museums and stuff. So anyway, that's sort of the first stage of all of that. Fantasy Island here in the UK. Now, they've actually been the first park to share a bit more information about their plans for what they're going to be doing. We haven't really heard much from a lot of parks yet, practically none. However, Fantasy Island have actually shared some plans about what they're going to be doing. So it certainly seems like with the park, they've been thinking about it all and they've put these plans forward. Of course, this is just a provisional sort of plan, what they put out on social media just a few days ago. But it just goes to show that things are happening behind the scenes. And as much as some parks may not want to post about that yet, Fantasy Island took the decision to post about it. And I really appreciate that they've gone to that stage and posted about it. So some things that I noticed from that with the fact they are going to be operating on pre-booked tickets only, that isn't really a big surprise. And I think a lot of these rules and restrictions that parks are going to put in won't really surprise us, especially with what we've seen from these European parks that have announced their plans to reopen, such as Europa Park, Phantasialand. They've all got these procedures in place, but pre-booked entry for Fantasy Island. Now you might be thinking it's an open site, it's an amusement park where it's free to enter and you can walk around. It's different to the likes of Alton Towers where it's paid entry. With Fantasy Island you can just walk around for free and buy tokens or a wristband. So what they're actually doing is going to close in the site. So they're going to change that, and they're actually going to make it that you're going to need to have a pre-booked entry to go in. So obviously they're going to have to put some sort of boundary up around the park, put some sort of fencing up, but it's good how they've thought about that now. And, you know, for all I know, changes could have already started to be implemented there. Who knows? But yeah, so obviously it's going to be a closed-in site. Limited capacity time sessions is something they're also looking at. So you may be, this is just an example, but they might look at, right, a 5-hour ride session in the morning, from 10 until mid-afternoon, then have an afternoon into the evening ride session. But they are looking at ride sessions, so could we maybe see that at some other parks? Maybe that wouldn't work at the bigger parks such as Alton Towers and Thorpe Park, but at some of the smaller, more family-run businesses what have got less attractions, maybe that could be a way forward for them. Looking at sessions a bit like what Fantasy Island could be doing. Say it was a 4-hour session, you could get plenty done in that time, especially the fact that there's going to be less people there and limited capacity. That's certainly something what we could be seeing at other parks too. And obviously they've got a market at Fantasy Island as well. They've also said that's going to be one way round, so they've been looking at that. But fair play to Fantasy Island for actually getting out there and saying these are the plans. I expect we're going to see more from other theme parks. And you've got to think our biggest theme parks here in the UK are owned by Merlin Entertainments, you know, and that is the likes of Alton Towers, Thorpe Park, Chessington World of Adventures and Legoland Windsor. The biggest theme parks, of course, are owned by Merlin Entertainment. So I imagine we'll see a statement released about all of them. But I'll be going more onto the whole Merlin side of things in just a moment. But first, let me just talk a little bit about some other things we may see in terms of 2020 editions. This is something a lot of people have been asking me as well. Do I think that plans are going to get pushed back? I would say most certainly. Now, I could expect maybe the 2020 10 inversion roller coaster for Flamingo Land being pushed back till 2021. Again, this is speculation now. This isn't official stuff. This is what my thoughts are and what I would probably do if I owned the business. But yeah, we could see that pushed back. We already know Tornado Springs at Paultons Park has been pushed back to 2021, Easter next year. Even though the area was nearly finished, they pushed it back. So it shows that, you know, these theme parks want a bit more stability before they can even think about opening new investments. So could we be seeing the same for the likes of Black Mirror at Thorpe Park, David Walliams, the new area at Alton Towers? It wouldn't surprise me if we see those areas being pushed back for next year. Just reopening as they can this year would be fantastic, and then they've got something already ready for next year, or just needs a little bit of work to finish off, ready for the 2021 season. I do think that we could be seeing something like that moving forward. Now let's go on to that whole Merlin ownership that I was talking about just now. Merlin Entertainments own attractions all over the world. Here in the UK they've got a lot of attractions. However, they've also got theme parks out there in mainland Europe, and Hyde Park in Germany and Gardaland in Italy could be what we're looking at. We could see them, what they do, before our theme parks open. Now, with Gardaland, they're saying that it's looking to open at some point in June. And with Hyde Park, it could potentially also open a little bit earlier than that of Gardaland. This is from going off their websites, what they've got as their statements. So that makes me think they're owned by Merlin Entertainments. We could be seeing what they implement and what they do could then be done here in the UK. They're like the test, so to speak. Then I was thinking in terms of the size of parks. Alton Towers is by far the biggest theme park in the UK in terms of the land space. Could we see Merlin use Alton Towers as a way of testing the format here in the UK? It's a big park. They could easily do social distancing there, especially with a limited capacity. 7,000 or 8,000 people in Alton Towers feels like a really quiet day. There's massive gaps on the paths and in queue lines. So they could potentially look at using Alton Towers before a more compact park like Chessington World of Adventures or Legoland, or especially Thorpe Park. So again, this is speculation, but it's stuff what could potentially happen. Merlin annual passes has been a big one that people have been asking me. We don't know. All we know is that Merlin annual pass have said officially they will be extending the passes, which is fantastic, and the memberships, what they were doing, they're not taking payments for that at the moment. So some great stuff from there. However, could we see restrictions on how many times you can visit each attraction? Could you only visit each one once a month or something like that? Because, you know, this is something what Europa Park in Germany have done. For their annual pass holders, you can only actually visit once a month. So, you know, it's something that Merlin Annual Pass will have to look at. There's thousands and thousands of annual pass holders in the UK. If they all ascend on Thorpe Park one day, there could be thousands of annual pass holders and not be able to let many regular guests in. So, you know, I could potentially see some sort of restrictions to the Merlin Annual Pass coming in, but who knows what. Again, it's speculation, it's sharing my thoughts, just going off it, not really having much of a script, just going off it and sharing what I think in my head about all of this and what could happen. Some bits could be right, other bits could be completely wrong. So it's one of those, isn't it? Now, finally, something else to think about, of course, is all them other restrictions that we've seen at European theme parks and Shanghai Disneyland, and even at other places that have started to open, such as City Walk at Universal Orlando Resorts. That's reopened. Disney Springs is reopening at Walt Disney World soon. So you've got to think, they've also put in restrictions in terms of temperature checks, wearing face masks. That is the new norm, as I've mentioned previously in these other couple of videos I filmed on the subject. So you've got to think about that. They've got to get the masks from somewhere for the staff at the parks. Could we be seeing, like we've seen in some supermarkets, where at kiosks in shops and food outlets, they put like perspex screens up to protect the staff and protect the guests? We could be seeing stuff like that. Do we know, have Merlin started to mark out areas in the park in terms of queue lines and at the entrance area? We don't know what's been going on behind the scenes, but I imagine a lot has. And I look forward to the day when we can step into a theme park again and, of course, follow all them rules and restrictions that are in place to be able to go there. But I'm sure we'll all agree right now, just to be able to walk around a theme park will be absolutely incredible. It won't even be about going on the rides for me initially. It'll be just walking around it, being in that atmosphere again. And yes, you may have to have your temperature checked, or you know, most likely wearing a face mask. But that is something that, if you want to experience theme parks this year, anywhere in the world, I imagine is going to be the norm. And well into 2021, that is what I'm expecting anyway. Anything better than that would be a better scenario. But I honestly think that we're going to be seeing this way into next year at the theme parks and attractions. So let's see what happens. But let me know your thoughts down below in the video comments. On my previous videos about the European parks and Shanghai Disneyland, it's certainly something that a lot of people have shared their opinions on, and people have got a lot of different opinions. But please respect others' opinions on things. Especially down in the video comments. Please respect what other people think. Everyone's entitled to an opinion and sharing their thoughts on it, but that doesn't mean you have to be rude to each other. You know, it's about respecting others. This is something that we're all going to get through together, and the priority is safety, but also when these theme parks reopen, everybody out there following these rules and making it the best situation for other guests, employees at the park, and the management that have implemented these rules. And supporting these parks when they do reopen is a must. The economy is going to need it, it really is. And honestly, I urge you, when this is over, let's all get out there, support the parks the best we can do, and make sure that we're following any restrictions that are in place. But there we go. They are my thoughts on the reopening of theme parks here in the United Kingdom. If there's more information about individual parks or Merlin making an announcement, I'll be straight on it here on Theme Park Worldwide and keep you up to date as always. How I'm doing the news this year, instead of having a weekly show, I film these videos, they're on the news playlist. It means I can talk for more about each subject, and it's so far proven to be much better for you guys getting the news a lot quicker instead of having to wait for a set day. It means I can sit down when the news comes out and share it with you guys. But thank you very much for watching Theme Park Worldwide. Keep watching the videos. As always, I really appreciate all of your support. I will be continuing to upload new videos every day here on the channel. I'm Sean Sandbrook, thanks for watching, and that means it's time to cue those credits. See you soon.